Hello and welcome to my channel, Vice Rhino here. Today we're doing part 2 of the Hovinds Answering Their Critics video, and once again I've cut quite a bit of their material out for time. He does like to repeat himself incessantly and spend a lot of time laughing at his own jokes, probably because no one else will. So let's dive right in.
Your 39,000 viewers are a drop in the bucket compared to the millions and millions we get on our site, and yours comes up right after mine. I mean, you type in Kent Hovind, his comes up first. So the other anti-Hovind websites are getting even less attention. So in one sense, it doesn't matter what they say, but I do get emails frequently saying, hey, I read this, what do you think? Why don't you respond? So I'm going to do this once and forget it. I'm not going to dwell on this, believe me. I have other things to do. Our philosophy is, if I've got to plant a garden to feed my family for the winter, half my yard is good dirt, half my yard is hard rock. I'm going to go ahead and plant the good dirt first. If I have time, I'll work on the rock. If I don't, oh well. At least I got a crop coming in. So I don't waste a lot of time on atheists. Not that I can't. They don't want to be plowed, okay?
You claim you don't waste your time on atheists, but the main focus of your professional life seems to be to debate them and try to prove them wrong. That would suggest that you do waste your time on atheists.
I just got an instant message from Fierce312, and he says, you guys are speaking with a lot of anger behind your words.
Anger behind the words.
I want it to be noted that I don't think we're angry at all with Carl or whoever it really is behind this site. We just simply want the truth to be known. We feel like it's a coward trying to come up and attack what's going on, and we're here defending the truth.
Well, I understand the criticism. I get that occasionally. Honestly, I am angry at those who, especially when I debate professors, when I realize they are taking tax dollars to destroy the faith of kids coming through their class. Go sit in a public university, go sit in a class where they teach evolution and watch how they ridicule Christians.
Stop complaining about what they do with your tax dollars. You have to actually pay taxes before you get to complain about that. And I wouldn't say that's anger behind your voice. It's more along the lines of arrogance.
One quick story and then we'll go on. Prophets of Baal, Elijah. Elijah killed 850 prophets of Baal. That's mean.
That's definitely mean.
That's definitely mean.
Wow.
I don't want to kill a primary church. I want to win for the Lord, and I would never kill anybody unless they were threatening my family. You know, self-defense is the only time I would ever do it. So, Carl, you're perfectly safe. I'm sorry if you feel mean, if you feel like I've been mean.
So basically what you're saying here seems to be that God condones the killing of followers of different religions, but you don't? If that's true, then that makes you morally superior to God. But if you do, in fact, agree with killing adherents to different faiths, then that makes you a coward for not fulfilling God's wishes. This is really the book that provides you with your moral compass?
The $250,000 challenge. You on that one?
Okay.
Okay. The following is analysis of Hovind's $250,000 challenge. The text of Hovind is quoted from, and it links to my offer, which is on my website, Dr. Dino. Hovind's words are in bold. Seasoned Hovind watchers may notice that he has removed references to some of the more controversial aspects of the challenge. Well, Carl, what I've done, I've tried to refine it so people, some of the people of lower IQ out there who don't understand the challenge will be able to understand it. We've just tried to make it easier for them to understand. Because some of the stuff that's come in to accept the $250,000 challenge is so dumb. I'm wondering.
Ridiculous, yeah.
I've seen the kinds of things you call dumb, which leads me to believe that the responses to your challenge were actually quite intelligent.
How are they not understanding this? You know, we've probably only had, I think, probably 10 over the years, even attempts at the challenge. Almost all of them. They write in and say, well, what bank is it in? What's the bank account number?
Yeah.
Who's in charge? You know, our word is good. If I make a promise, I will do it.
And I can vouch for that as his son. There's no doubt about it. My dad's an honest man, and the gentleman, the friend of ours, definitely has the money.
I do realize this was filmed before he was sent to prison for tax evasion, but with hindsight, it looks like your dad is actually not that honest of a man. Now, the challenge has since been removed, but on the other end of the spectrum, we have James Randi's $1 Million Challenge, which will provide you with all the relevant details of the account holding the prize money if you ask them for it. That's much more reliable than the word of a tax evader, in my opinion.
Let's see. Seasoned Hovind watchers notice he's removed some of the more controversial aspects of the challenge. Honestly, Carl, I'm trying to be fair. I really want to see evidence for evolution. I am so convinced there is none, zero. There is no evidence for this theory, which is why I try to carefully define it. And if we have to, modify it to make it more understandable, I will. He says, I will be highlighting where Hovind has been less than explicit in his terms. A list of past and present challengers is included at the end of this article. Here's the analysis of the present version of Hovind's challenge. And he has bold, if you're reading on the website, he has my stuff bolded and then his response. He says, $250,000 to anyone who can give empirical evidence, scientific proof for evolution, and an asterisk. Notice, Mary Church writes, notice the little star. Hovind is working with a very broad definition of evolution. While most people would have thought his challenge was in regards to biological evolution, this would be a misconception. Hovind is attacking every conclusion of science which contradicts a literal reading of Genesis. I'll call you're totally misunderstanding. Yeah. I'm not attacking anything that contradicts Genesis. Genesis is unrelated to this. The fact is, the word evolution does have 6 meanings. Yeah. They want to limit this to biological evolution. I say, wait a minute, where did you get the living creature to evolve? If you don't have a theory that goes back to a beginning, you don't have a complete theory.
Yeah.
Why? And why is it only evolution that has to go back to the beginning? You could say the same about gravity. It's not a valid theory unless you go back and explain where gravitational fields and waves came from and how they began in the first place. I don't see you contesting that one. What about cell theory? That's very closely related to evolution, but I don't see you claiming that we're not made of cells because we don't know the origins of the universe. Science is compartmentalized, and for good reason. It takes decades of careful study to properly understand fairly small fields of science. So to say that an evolutionary biologist must at the same time be a cosmological astrophysicist is completely ridiculous.
Even evolutionists, when they comprehend that finally, it hits them like, wow, boy, this is right.
Yeah, it really does.
I did a debate last 2 weeks ago, or 3, whenever it was, I traveled too much, but in California, and the guy wrote and it specifically said, I don't want to discuss anything about evolution other than once life is here.
Why would you want to do that?
Yeah, why do you want to do that?
Gee, I don't know. Was he an evolutionary biologist, perhaps? If so, it makes perfect sense that he would want to keep the discussion in his area of expertise, rather than going into areas like cosmology, which have nothing to do with his field of study.
Because you know the first 4 steps are impossible to overcome. Where did matter come from? Where did space come from? Where did energy come from? How did life get started from non-living material?
I would love to see you sit down and chat with Lawrence Krauss about that. Except the inevitable result would be that Lawrence's head would explode from the amount of stupid you throw at it.
So, Carl, the reason I spell out on my theory clearly, I'm offering $250,000 for proof for the general theory, because the whole theory, all 6 parts of evolution, are being taught in the textbooks.
Exactly.
I can show it to you in the 2004 textbooks, the ones that coming out, they're already out, actually, for next year. Yeah. I've got them, all right? And they are teaching the Big Bang Theory.
Oh, so you do know the proper name for it. I thought it was part of the theory of evolution in your mind.
They are teaching life started from non-living material. They are teaching stars evolved. They are teaching the things that I mentioned. They certainly are teaching macroevolution, which says, dogs and bananas have a common ancestor.
Right.
So, yes, if you want me or my son to pay for this to be taught in the textbooks, then you need to provide an answer. If you can't answer how these things happen, then take it out of the textbook.
Exactly.
I did one debate one time, and the guy said, well...
I love how specific you are. One debate one time against a guy. That makes for a very compelling argument. No way you could have possibly made up a story with so many details.
I think we should limit this just to, biological evolution, like Carl says here, once life gets started. I say, well, then are you admitting that you have no evidence for the first 5? Or first 4 of the stages of my evolution? He says, well... yeah, we probably can't prove any of those.
You do this quite a bit. You're always telling stories of how you completely stump people on these simple little points, but you will never be specific about where, when, or with whom these conversations occurred. If this conversation actually happened, I would be willing to bet that what he actually said was closer to, I would like to keep the debate within my field so I don't have to defend scientific theories which I'm not an expert on. But I'm also willing to bet that you honestly heard in your head, no, we can't prove any of that. There's no evidence.
For those that don't know the 6 different types of evolution, while you're looking at what you're going to discuss next with this $250,000 offer, there are basically 6 types of evolution.
No, if we're talking about the scientific theory of evolution, then only 2 of the items on your list are covered by it.
First one is cosmic evolution, which is the origin of time, space, and matter. Many evolutionists refer to it as the Big Bang. Second one is chemical evolution, how all the chemicals evolved from just hydrogen and helium. Then we have stellar and planetary evolution, correct, how all the stars and planets formed.
Your understanding of cosmology is atrocious. The chemicals didn't evolve from hydrogen and helium. Hydrogen and helium are the only elements that would have been able to form on their own as the early universe cooled. They would have then condensed into gas clouds, and over time gravity would compress the clouds even more as they grew. Eventually the pressure in the cloud would be so high that it would start a fusion reaction with the hydrogen and the helium, combining them to form some of the heavier elements. When the stars explode, it sends the heavier elements flying through the universe. The process continued for billions of years until you have the universe we see today. Most of this is explained in a book that I read to my kids called Older Than the Stars by Karen Fox. There are a few minor omissions and errors, but I think it would be a good starting point for you in understanding the history of our universe.
Fourth is organic evolution, how life came from non-life.
That's called abiogenesis, not organic evolution. It's a separate theory.
Fifth type of evolution is macroevolution. That would be changing from one type of animal into a different type of animal. And then the final...
Use the word kind, like the Bible says kind.
Kind of animal.
Fine, use the word kind if you want, but please, give us a concrete definition.
That's true.
One kind into another one.
And then the last type of evolution is microevolution, which, like I said, it's not really evolution because all it is simple variations.
It's not even a good term. I hate the term microevolution, but they use it, so we need to define it.
So only 2 out of 6 of your types of evolution actually have anything at all to do with the theory of evolution. And microevolution is the exact same thing as macroevolution. The only difference is the time scale.
It's a variation. Dogs and wolves probably had a common ancestor. That does not prove dogs and bananas have a common ancestor.
Yeah. And
they don't get it, though. They just don't get it.
I do get it. And you know what? I'm not going to say this often, but you're right. The fact that dogs and wolves share a common ancestor is, in and of itself, not proof that they also share a common ancestor with bananas. You know what is evidence for it, though? Comparative gene sequence analysis, DNA sequencing, proteomic evidence, pseudogenes, comparative anatomy, embryology, the fossil record. I could go on and on. I'll just provide you with a link to the Wikipedia page titled Evidence of Common Descent. It's a very long page with a hell of a lot of evidence.
The evolution to say if we could live here and we were around for 100,000 years, we could see the evolution taking place.
And I say that's precisely my point.
Exactly.
We don't observe it, so it's no longer science.
Talk Origins has a whole page of examples of observed instances of macroevolution. The problem is that you don't seem to understand the time scale. There have been droves of cases where species under lab conditions have evolved into separate species from the originals and can no longer breed with them. But you seem to be under the impression that because fruit fly A and fruit fly B are both fruit flies, then speciation has not occurred. You're looking for a fruit fly to have a spider as an offspring, but if it did, that would actually be excellent evidence for the existence of a god, not evidence for evolution. Evolution is a slow process. Back to the fruit flies, as the bee flies reproduce and are genetically cut off from the A flies, they become more and more different. They acquire new traits and lose old ones. Eventually they give rise to C fruit flies. Each generation slightly different from the last. Now for a thought experiment, eventually, given the right conditions, it could result in fruit flies with no wings. What do you call a fly with no wings? Not a fly, certainly. It's already been demonstrated that in the lab they will lose their eyes if the need of them is eliminated, so why not wings? This is precisely why you need to provide a concrete definition of the word kind if you're going to assert that evolution cannot happen between kinds.
Okay, so Carl says the challenge, he said he thought most people thought his challenge would be in regards to biological evolution. This would be a misconception. Well, no, Carl, it's perfectly correct that all 6 parts, all 6 phases or steps, whatever you want to call it, of evolution are taught in the textbooks, and the author clearly spells out this is what we're talking about. We're not referring to minor changes within the kind, and I'm going to stick with the Bible word kind, because a horse and a zebra are the same kind of animal. A horse and a banana are not. Okay? And I think the dividing up of the kinds could be done by a 5-year-old in 99% of the cases. There may be a few tricky ones where I don't know what kind of animal that is. What group does that go in? Okay. But a 5-year-old can divide up most of the animals into the kinds. Okay. For the other ones, you might need a 6-year-old to do those. Okay.
I've seen your presentation where you find a 5-ish-year-old kid in the audience, show them a slide with 3 dogs and a banana, and ask them which one is not the same kind. So your definition of a kind seems to be that, of 4 images, the one that is identified by a young child as being different is the one that is not the same kind. Well, I happen to have a 6-year-old handy. Okay, Lily, you see that picture there?
Yep.
Which one of those is a different kind from all the others?
The banana.
Very good, sweetie. Okay, Lily. Same question. Out of those 4 pictures, which one is the different kind?
The rock.
Very good, sweetie. Thank you. So there you have it. By Kent Hovind's own definition of the word kind, humans, chimps, and bananas are all the same kind. Well done, Kent.
So he says, Hovind is attacking every conclusion of science which contradicts a literal reading of Genesis. Carl, I would take that sentence out. That is simply not true.
I agree with Hovind on this one. He doesn't attack every conclusion of science, just the ones he knows about. And by knows about, what I actually mean is he's sort of aware of them, but has zero comprehension of them.